For the first time in a long time, we have a super defined best deck in format, and I just got back from the Charlotte, North Carolina Pokemon TCG Regionals, where I definitely underperformed. We're gonna give you guys the best Pokemon decks for the top 10 decks in the game right now. So if you guys want to fast forward, go ahead and skip to the particular deck that you want to see. But if you do, hit that like button so it doesn't punish me, and that rhymed a little bit. For this list, we actually got a lot of this information from justinbasil.com. Justin Basil is an amazing resource for Pokemon players. They have proxies for a lot of Japanese cards early that are well translated and look really nice. And Justin Basil also compiles the best decks in this list based off data-driven list. This is not a opinion-based list for this time around. Let's get to the top 10 decks. This one's gonna make some people happy. We're gonna start off with Chien Pao. Chien Pao EX is number 10, and it honestly has evolved and then devolved, and now you have basically two really good ways to play Chien Pao. This is Regan Retzloff's 58th place list out of 2,100 plus players from the Charlotte Regionals. This was the highest placing Chien Pao list that performed, and it looks really solid. And once again, it's a list that we're seeing without the help of Iron Hands EX. We're going for more of a classic water ice only type of build, and for that you make it really consistent. And then just in case if you do want to continue rocking the Iron Hands in your Chien Pao list, here is the list on screen that you might want to try out. This list got 71st place, played by Carlos Mendina Estet. I probably pronounced your name wrong, I'm sorry fam. But yeah, I'm gonna be giving you guys like two different variations of these lists that you guys can test out, so you're not just, I'm not funneling you only onto one. I'll give you guys some options. We will be covering the best of the best decks from Charlotte Regionals once all of the day 2 results get posted, but that's going to be in an upcoming video. On to our number 9 deck that was also played by, I believe, the current reigning number 1 ranked player in the US and Canada, potentially worldwide, Calvin Connor. Calvin Connor is a part of the Shuffle Squad, and he's been dominating with Snorlax Control over the last couple events. He did really well in San Antonio. I think he went like undefeated for day 1 and still got a really high top placement at the end of San Antonio. And this time, he hardly even made it to Charlotte. I was keeping track on Twitter. If you guys aren't on Twitter, it's SneakerTalk CA if you want to follow me. And Calvin had some flight issues going down there, so he straight up made it to the airport, and then he Ubered, I believe, straight to the venue from his flight, and then he still got 10th place at the event. That is insane. So I know some people are going to hate Calvin for it, but he was playing Snorlax doll. Here is the list that he was using, and it is a diabolical list. So again, if you do intend to lose your friends along the way, then go ahead and play Stall. But if you don't mind that, or if you just want to become public enemy number 1, go ahead and play some Stall decks like this. Now, before we get to number 8, I want to give a quick honorable mention, which could also be tied for like 9th, I believe. But we have Rapid Strike Box. Here's the Rapid Strike Box, played by Alex Kreckler, who got 24th place at the Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals. And it is, of course, featuring, you know, the Rapid Strike Pokemon like Urshifu and Teleon. And of course, you got Octillery being the real puppeteer that lets you get everything you want every single turn. I think Rapid Strike's in a pretty solid position, but it's also one of those decks, kind of like Lost Tina, where it can really just lose to itself if it's unable to set up and really get things going. Also, if you are a fan of battle styles, you know, Rapid Strike and Single Strike Pokemon, these will be your last couple of months to play with Rapid Strike Pokemon. So before rotation hits, you might want to make some more last minute memories with the Rapid Strike Toolbox deck. And another deck that's also on its last couple of months that we have remaining, which I'm very happy for, we have Mew VMAX coming in at number 8. Mew VMAX was a very popular deck for the Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals as well, and it's no surprise that Mew VMAX was one of the most played decks, and it's in the top 8 right now because it's in a really solid spot. Again, a lot of people are trying to make some last minute memories with Mew VMAX before rotation hits, so I'm sure a lot of people had that rotation date coming in mind, or in mind for their deck selection for this event, and they'll probably have it in mind for the upcoming events as well in places like Knoxville and Vancouver, which, by the way, if you want to compete in the Vancouver Regionals, registration is going to be on tomorrow, and it's going to be super limited, 800 players for Masters. So I missed it last year. I'm hoping I can get into it this year, but if you want to sign up for Vancouver, you're going to have to be on it like you are buying like online concert tickets or something like that. But yeah, the best version of Mew VMAX that I'm going to show you guys right here was played by J. Cristiano Toronto, who got 12th place at the Charlotte Regionals. And this exact 60 card list was actually played by a ton of other players, including top players and well-known players like Andrew Mahone, Gabe Smart, and Christian Labella, who's also a local as well. There's just so many people who played Mew VMAX and this exact 60. And it's actually crazy that this many people all brought this exact same 60 card Mew VMAX deck and performed this well with it. The big thing with Mew VMAX is that it's been really crippled by Spiritomb. Spiritomb was like the public enemy #1 for this deck, and so people are trying to find ways to play against it and also not, you know, be able to keep up with the other harder decks that are out there, like Charizard and Tina and Rapid Strike. And so by having these Fusion Strike energies in the deck, it cancels out the Spiritomb's ability, meaning you get to play the game. And getting to play the game as Mew VMAX is really just all you got to do, because Mew VMAX is one of those decks I want to say is like an autopilot deck. It basically just plays itself. As long as you're drawing cards and you're not getting your abilities turned off by cards like Path to the Peak or Spiritomb, Mew with the power of Genesect just gets to run rampant. So that's why a lot of players are no longer using tech cards like Crushing Hammers or Grabbers. Instead, it's just the Fusion Strike energies, because hey, playing the game is better than not playing the game. All right, so on to number 7. Number 7 is going to be 3 different lists of Lost Box, because Lost Box is, well, it's a pretty big archetype and there's a lot of great ways you can play it. So let's start off first with the Radiant Charizard in Sableye version, aka Sablezard. This Sablezard list right here was played by Alex Shemansky, and he's one of the top players in the game as well. He actually placed 5th place on at the Charlotte Regionals and is the highest placing Sablezard list. This deck is in a really solid spot in the meta, and honestly, if you're able to dodge decks like Miraidon with Path to the Peaks in it, this deck can just steamroll a lot of decks out there. Having single prize attackers like Cramorant, Sableye, and of course Radiant Charizard are just really handy. No matter what deck you're playing against, you're able to create some pretty unique and solid prize maps. So this is one of those decks that will really reward super skilled players. It also won a recent regional, I believe was it Stuttgart, Germany, or just a European regional played by Christian Fontenot. And I think he said that he never played Sablezard before that event, but he's a very good player. So he picked up the deck for the tournament and just popped off. So if you love Lost Box, this is a really good deck to check out. Now, the other popular version I've been seeing of Lost Box is Lost Box with Iron Hands and Roaring Moon. The list you are looking at right now came in 31st place, just squeaking into the top 32 at Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals to get that $1,000 prizing plus the booster box. This list looks really good and consistent. You got Roaring Moon in here, of course, for that 1-hit KO option with Frenzy Gouging and Calamity Storm. And then you also have Pokemon in here like Iron Hands EX to do some extra prize pickups if you're not able to do it with a Radiant Greninja. So you got Iron Hands, you got Dragonite, you got Roaring Moon. It's a pretty standard looking Lost Box deck, but your attackers are going to be, of course, with the main things that really differentiate your deck from other people. The final list I want to share you guys that is related to Lost Box is a Lost Box Kyogre that Aiden Koos played to get 33rd place out of 2,000 plus players for the regionals. Lost Box Kyogre, a deck that I think is in a pretty solid position right now too, especially with a lot of Giratina decks taking out their mana fee, so they're able to capitalize on that. And also, if you are a fan of any of the Pokemon that are in the Celebrations Pokemon set, just a heads up, all the cards in that set are going to be rotating out. On to number 6. Number 6 is a deck that should not surprise you if you've been playing the game a lot the last couple of weeks. It's a deck that's just getting more and more popular. It's like, I was trying to come up with a funny pun, but I couldn't. It's Gholdengo EX. That's the deck we're talking about. Gholdengo EX with Palkia V-STAR. Gholdengo EX is really strong because you're able to get a 260 HP attacker that only needs 1 energy to attack, and then you just basically keep recycling your energies, so you're able to go for some big 1-hit KOs. And of course, if you set up multiple Gholdengos, the ability is draw 2 if it's in the active, or draw 1 if it's on the bench. You just get to keep drawing cards and picking up cards, and it kind of feels nice to, you know, draw a lot of cards on your turn, and then making it rain on your opponent also feels really good. I actually got rained on in round 8 of Charlotte. Oh gosh. There are 2 versions of the deck I'm going to be sharing with you guys right now, and both of them were played by brothers in Charlotte, North Carolina. So let's start with the brother that performed not as good. Coming in at 133rd place, we got Jeremy Gumella, and his version of the list is slightly different compared to his brother's Jarek, which I'll talk about in just a second. This version of the deck is playing 7 water energies and 3 metal. His brother Jarek ended up having a list that has 6 water energies, 4 metal, and instead of 1 Roxanne, it has 2 Roxannes. I really do think Gholdengo is going to get more popular as we get closer and closer to rotation, and when Path to the Peak rotates out, the deck gets even better. So yeah, your boy is here working on his own Gholdengo deck. I'll probably start using the one that Jarek did to get 30th place, and I'll be bringing it to a bunch of local tournaments. So if you want to see how that goes down, of course, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button down below too. On to our tier 2 decks. These are 5 really strong decks, but you know, not all the decks can be tier 1 or tier S or S tier 0. So let's start off with my personal deck, my favorite deck, Miraidon EX. 2 different versions of Miraidon that you might want to consider playing. The first one is going to be Nick Moffat's. Nick Moffatt recently got 5th place at the Portland Regionals with Miraidon EX, a hybrid version featuring Tapu Koko as his paralysis choice, and he ran back pretty much nearly the same 60, the same 59 over in Charlotte, North Carolina, getting a 36. The only difference is that this time around for the Charlotte list, instead of 2 judges, they went for 1 judge, 1 Arvin. I remember watching a podcast last week where he talked about how he kind of wished there was an Arvin instead of the 2 judges. So he went for the same 59 card list, but just swapped out 1 judge for an Arvin. This list is fantastic, and I would recommend it to anybody who wants to play a hybrid version of Miraidon. And then on to our other Miraidon list. This list was played by Ryan Miller, who got 4th place at Charlotte, North Carolina. And oh my goodness, if you can go back and watch the day 2 top 8 matchup with Ryan, where he peonies for double counter for double what's it called? What's the card called? Pokemon Catcher, that's the one. Where he hits tails on the first one, and then he hits heads for the next one per game. It's just, oh, what a thrill of a match to watch, especially live in the front row. Here's your highest performing list of Turbo Miraidon. Some notable things here is that they do have a copy of Drapion V to help out with that Mew matchup, because of course, if you have Spiritomb on your board, you're not able to use Lumineon, and using Lumineon is crucial to the deck in case you do need to find a Peony on turn number 1. So, really cool deck. I think the big innovations here is that they have 3 copies of EXP Share, not 2, and then they have 2 copies of Pokemon Catcher, which is really important because this is a deck that only plays 2 copies of Boss's Orders, and sometimes you just need to be able to switch the attacker you're going to hit. So being able to just peony for a Pokemon Catcher feels really good, because at some points of the games, like later to mid point of the game, there's going to be no more generators in your deck, so you may as well be able to search out a boss on a whim. But in this case, it's a coin flip boss for Pokemon Catcher. On to deck number 4. It's a deck that Miraidon gets to absolutely feast on as long as they don't prize their Iron Hands like I did in one of the rounds of the regionals. Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir is still super popular, and it's actually in a really solid spot in the meta right now. It's a deck that has a pretty solid matchup against decks like Giratina VSTAR, which a lot of people do consider one of the best decks in the game. Gardevoir is one of those decks that really rewards players who are very well practiced in it, who are very methodical in their way of thinking, and that can line up some really good plays. So if you are a newer player, it's a deck I would honestly never recommend to you. It's just a complicated deck to play, and also a lot of the good cards are going to be rotating out, like Shining Arcana Gardevoir. So I'm not sure how this deck is going to fare after rotation. It's probably going to take a hit. That's what a lot of people are saying, but hey, I could be wrong. You know, I'm just one person with an opinion, you know. Here is the 3rd place list from Charlotte, North Carolina, played by Gustavo Wada, one of the best players in the game as well, representing Brazil in the top 4, besides Vinny, who won it all in 1st place, of course. This version of Gardevoir EX does feature 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass, 1 copy of Screamtail, and 1 Zacian V. The major card here for that switch out, for that paralysis people get worried about, or just being able to deny a 2 prize KO for your opponent, is that Professor Turo scenario. Also, if you are playing this deck, you're going to absolutely need to include at least a copy of Manaphy and Jirachi. If you don't have those cards in your deck, you're gonna get your solid matchup against Tina is just gonna be way more painful if they're able to Sableye your Pokemon on the bench. All right, on to number 3. I'm probably gonna mention this again when we do like the best decks overall from Charlotte, North Carolina, but I have to say this now. Roaring Moon had a 33% conversion rate from day 1 to day 2. That is disgusting. A lot of people are underestimating the power of Roaring Moon, myself included. I am now a Roaring Moon believer. I'm a Dark Miraidon believer. You will be catching me at a couple of upcoming locals with Roaring Moon. I'll tell you that much, because this deck is so good. It is a lot of fun to play. It's turbo just like Miraidon. If you're skeptical about playing Roaring Moon, let me be your guinea pig. I'll bring it to a bunch of events, but with a 33% conversion rate, that is insane. That is like, we're talking about 1/3 of the players who played Roaring Moon made it into day 2 with that. What? That is so unheard of. I think the last time it was something like that was like maybe Mew VMAX at its peak. And maybe Mew VMAX was even a higher day 2 conversion because it's Mew VMAX. So we were sharing with you guys 2 different deck lists for Roaring Moon. There's many popular ways to play, but I think these are the 2 most popular. So starting off with just a hardcore turbo Roaring Moon. This list, played by Dr. Ross Cawthon, got 7th place at the Charlotte, North Carolina regionals, and some big and notable inclusions to this list is the heavy research count at 3, and also a copy of Iono. There's also Emergency Jelly in here as well, which can allow you to get some defensive plays lined up, so your Roaring Moon just doesn't get knocked out with 30 HP on it, because it does heal off a bunch of damage, I believe 120, so it leaves your Roaring Moon with 150, which prevents your Roaring Moon to just get easily knocked out by some small single prize Pokemon. And of course, if you're going for more of the aggressive play, you can use the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule to boost up your HP to 290. This list looks really fun to play. I'm excited to start playing this myself. The other highest placing Roaring Moon list I want to share with you guys was played by Julio Santos de Leon, who got 14th place out of 2,100 plus players at the Charlotte Regionals. However, this version of Roaring Moon has 3 copies of Water Energies, while Dr. Ross Cawthon had 9 Dark Energies only. So he was never attacking with Greninja. This version of the list does allow you to attack with Greninja and even Lumineon if the scenario calls for it. Both of these lists are super fun to play. It's all about accelerating your energies onto the board or the discard pile as fast as you can, using Pokemon like Galarian Moltres V to attach those energies onto it from your discard pile, using cards like Radiant Greninja to discard your energies to draw more cards to get you more combo pieces, and then you can also use cards like Energy Switch to move over those energies from Pokemon like Galarian Moltres V or others that you have them attached to your next attacker, so you just keep on lining up attacks. It's a fun way to play Pokemon, and you got cards in here too like Cross Switcher, which allow you to boss up and switch in your attackers however you want. On to number 2. Number 2 is Charizard EX. Yes, Charizard EX has finally, well, I think it was dethroned last week too, but it was kind of like a iffy, like the first and second were super close, but this time it's like a definite like second, I want to say. We got Charizard EX, and the first list I want to share with you guys was played by my friend Paul Margold, who actually was my roommate for one of my 3 roommates I had for this event. Paul got 25th place with this Charizard deck list, so I want to give it some love. The big notable inclusions, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise. You do have the 1 copy of Switch in here for respecting the paralysis and also helping you in matchups like Stall. Paul also included the Radiant Charizard in this list to help out and be a 1 prize attacker when that needs to come up. It is very useful. And then you have Devolution TM. That's the card that's going to be his tech of choice for the mirror match and other matchups where it can benefit him. And then the last notable inclusion is the Tool of Defiant Band for his damage modification of choice. And now on to the highest placing Charizard list from North Carolina, also played by 3 different players, all this exact same 60s. Caleb Rogerson, who got 2nd place at Charlotte, North Carolina with this 60 card list of Charizard EX. Now looking at this list and actually comparing it to Paul's list, there's a 1 card difference, and so they chose to use Choice Belt in this particular list. Caleb and all the other people that chose is 60. Now Choice Belt is very strong because it allows Charizard to start taking knockouts, some pretty solid knockouts, before your opponent takes prizes. So Choice Belt, if you're a Charizard player in a heavy Miraidon area, I hate to say this, but Choice Belt is our nightmare, because now you can just KO our Raichu or our Raikou. and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's pretty much the only change, I believe, from the 59 cards that Paul played to get 25th. So congratulations again to Caleb Rogerson for getting 2nd place at the Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals. Now, you might be wondering, what is the best deck in format? The clear best deck in format? Well, it took the last 2 regionals back to back, and that is Giratina VSTAR. Giratina VSTAR is a deck that takes really good matchups across the board, and I've said this so many times, the hardest thing for this deck sometimes is just setting up itself. Its biggest weakness is the Lost Zone engine, sometimes working against it and also being able to break. But if you saw the grand finals of Charlotte Regionals, you would know that anything is possible with this deck. Even if you prize all 3 of your Giratina Vs like Vinny did, it is still possible to win and become a regional champion. So real quick, I'm going to show you guys 2 different versions of Lost Tina. The first one will be Isaiah Bradner's list, who got 6th place at Charlotte, which also Paul actually took a game off of. He tied Isaiah Bradner in the earlier Swiss round. So the things to really note about Isaiah's list is that he does have 3 copies of Path to the Peak. He has 2 copies of Water Energy, and that is pretty much it. They also have the Manaphy as well for bench protection. So there's Isaiah's list. Really solid, really standard way of playing Lost Tina. Now on to the first place list from Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals, played by Vinny Fernandez. We have Giratina VSTAR with 4 Path to the Peak. That 4th Path to the Peak is a diabolical weapon. They also had to cut the Manaphy in the list to kind of make room for that. One other notable inclusion in Vinny's list is that he does play 1 copy of Avery, which is really good against pretty much any decks in general that have to set up their board pretty big, especially against decks like Gardevoir, which of course Gardevoir is one of the harder matchups for Giratina. So this is basically a hard counter supporter for the deck. To see how my adventure went down for the Charlotte, North Carolina Regionals, you can click right here to see that vlog when it's up, and if it's not, it's just going to be a different vlog. Only subscribe if you want to hang out some more. Comment down below what deck you guys are playing the most right now. What deck is your favorite? Catch you guys in the next video or a future live stream. Peace!